But that is the conventional nuclear reactors. The one thing Lawrence Wong specifically mentioned was the SMR, the small modular reactor, Terence. I would assume that it's not one of those, stereotypical like conical vast bases kind of thing.
It's like the Iron Man, the suit like that. Maybe Lawrence Wong will wear that into Parliament one day.
No, he comes flying in. Parliament House, the ceiling open. Then Lawrence Wong comes down. Oh, yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man.
Yeah.
Really got some hot news,
Yeah. This
With
whole
a hot week,
can't stop, man. Like Monday, Pritam, Tuesday, Lawrence. Here we are, like one banger after another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really Pritam and Lawrence,
Yeah.
two polar extremes of like really there's like the government and the opposition.
Yeah. But one is such a negative thing, right? Like getting convicted of lying and being fined. The other one is like
Santa Claus.
Yeah, basically. Santa Claus, election year Santa
We
Claus.
need a new name for so like I'm guessing after this parliament, after the new parliament, the new government is elected, Lawrence Wong probably won't be finance minister anymore.
I don't know. That's the thing. I never knew that you could concurrently hold prime minister and like finance minister, because that's such a big portfolio as well.
It's
right?
huge.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was going to say that it feels like we need a name for Lawrence Wong. Like, you had Sugar Daddy Heng, which kind of rolled off the tongue.
Yeah.
We haven't got something else for Lawrence Wong yet. If he's going to carry on as finance minister, which I don't think he would.
I think when elections come around, there'll be some catchphrases and everything, right? That every one of them will use. Maybe by then it will come a bit more naturally. I see a few nicknames online of Lawrence Wong.
Like what?
Not the most positive. Some people say like Liang Po Po, that kind of thing, because he resembles that Jack Neo character from...
The smile, is it?
Actually, the glasses and the wrinkles on the head and the slick back hair and everything. So some people, like, they say Liang Po Po, and it's quite derogatory, I would say. In the sense that, I mean, it's not saying someone looks good or anything. Things like that. And so maybe something better will come in the picture closer to election. Right?
Yeah. I mean, the news is so hot that we even skipped the banter.
But this is the banter, right? This is all that people are talking about. They're talking about Pritam, they're talking about budget. This is dominating my dinner conversations. Is it not dominating yours?
No, got nothing else about my life since Monday that you're curious to know about.
I'm sure you've, like me, been wrapped into reading about these issues, right?
Kind of reading, listening.
Okay, fine. How have you been, Harish?
I mean, okay lah. Nothing new.
Yeah. Our lives, we are mere pawns in this bigger game.
Some people say we are mouthpieces.
Mouthpieces, yeah.
Mouthpieces.
What are the other insults that people have leveled at us? Stooges. Yeah.
Not like don't know anything, just talk. A lot. Yeah. But it's it doesn't stop us from doing what we do. Genocide enablers. But we do have some deep stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Almost feels like 1 hour is not going to be enough.
Yeah, 1 hour is not.
And we do have a second topic as well.
Yeah.
But I guess enough with the banter. It's too intense to hold back anymore.
So if you're new to this podcast and you like what you're listening to, please follow, share, subscribe. Tell the algorithm that you enjoy this and you want to be fed more of this Yalabat goodness all over your feed.
And if you want to work with us, just drop us a message at contact@ministryoffunny.com or a message on ministryoffunny.com, which is our website.
Yeah.
We can jump straight into it, man.
Straight into the meat of it, man.
So, the news, as anyone would know, is that PM Lawrence Wong, also Finance Minister Lawrence Wong, delivered the budget 2025 yesterday on Tuesday, 18th February. I think the whole speech in Parliament was about an hour, 40 minutes. And like, how do you consume it?
Live stream, yo.
Live stream,
I sat there and listened to it.
Yeah. I had to watch it after because live stream you cannot double speed.
I know. Yeah, you don't enjoy the theatrics of things.
Yeah, cannot.
You just want to
cannot.
go get straight to the source.
Yeah, straight. You mean you watched? You saw his
watched.
facial expressions and all.
You watched. I mean, yeah, you don't want to miss certain things like when he, apologized for being a bit under the weather, such that his voice was a bit, raspy. Yeah, there are little moments like that you just want to capture, and how the rest of Parliament was behaving as well during that whole period.
Oh, I see. So, so got it in double speed. I mean, we've basically been spending the whole of yesterday and today digesting as much as we can. So maybe just straight into it. Like what were your feelings as you were watching it? Since you exactly watched the live stream one.
Yeah. So I was watching a live stream and concurrently just opening up, Reddit and looking at what comments that people are saying. And as it was going on, people were like, like that only called election budget. And that's because Lawrence Wong spaced out all these announcements, right? He talked about CDC vouchers first, but he didn't talk about the SG60, the SG60 bonus and everything. Right? So that came much later. He didn't talk a lot about all the other goodies that were mentioned along the way about Active SG and all these things. All came later in the second half. So people, while watching, I think they were just jumping to quick conclusions that that's it only, right? So in that sense, I thought it was like, okay, I guess this budget thing is not just about like just doling out money, right? You have to sort of craft the narrative behind it and space out the announcement such that there's more emotional impact when it actually comes, right? Yeah, so that's something I got from watching the live stream and just being part of it.
But do you find yourself getting sucked into either sentiment, either kind of extreme sentiment or not?
No. I mean, yeah, initially I was like, oh, that's a bit underwhelmed, right, by whatever was being announced. But as he went on, then I realized, oh, okay,
he's Santa Claus.
Yeah, there were more and more things, the SG60 thing and all the other things related to your skills future funding and all that as well. So yeah, there really was a lot along the way, but they needed to deliver it in such a way that there was enough time for every niche segment of the population to have their concerns heard, right? Yeah, which is essentially the theme of what they were saying, right? A budget for all Singaporeans, right? Well, I almost sound like I'm spouting propaganda now.
That's right. This episode was brought to you in my...
No, it's not. I'm really just coming from a sense of like, just my anticipation of what the budget speech would be, and then it turning out feeling more like almost like a National Day rally kind of thing. Yeah. How about you? What was it like listening to it
after,
speed? Yeah, two times.
I mean, I guess maybe less of the emotions or the little quirks from Lawrence Wong. But I mean, because I watched it retroactively, so I had already seen the chatter online about people saying, "Oh, it's goodies" and all that kind of stuff. So I went in with that mindset. But I was trying to look at it a bit more. Okay, like how to think about it as one whole thing, because he really did. Cover almost like every imaginable group. Just to roll off the things he spoke about. He spoke about the economic outlook, gave the GDP expectations and all, the overview of our financial position, the rising costs, and then, all the CDC vouchers, real estate, talked about new flats being launched, taxes, especially corporate income tax rebates, wages, how the government will help, tech and innovation, talking about the National Productivity Fund, the Changi Terminal 5, investments, about growing local enterprises, stock market to attract companies to set up here, transport, which is expanding the rail network, energy. He talked about even nuclear power, workforce, and he spent a lot of time on workforce from like skills future to part-time training, full-time training, aging workforce. Education, sustainability, climate risk, family support, a lot of schemes to help families, especially larger families, older folk, and then the SG60 package. So I mean, just from reading, even journalists who have been covering budgets for years, right? This seems to be one of the most, if not the most generous in terms of things that are being given to the citizens. Then, I was thinking, okay, there is a lot of handouts. Then, of course, you can look at the academic and the theoretical side of things and the practical side of things. But it almost feels like, wow, how are they going to sustain these handouts? Because it almost feels like, okay, you go into the budget thinking, what is it in for me?
Yeah.
What am I going to get?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I never used to follow the budget like 6-7 years ago. But now it is almost like CDC vouchers, right? It's almost like
It's a currency, right?
it's a currency, yeah. It's a currency, and now there's live SG credits. There's a website, support GoWare, and honestly, there's something GoWare, right? It's fucking annoying, lah. It's annoying the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Even though it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
And you can argue there's holistic branding, but it felt like there's a lot of. So then what is the message that is coming across with all these handouts? Because on one hand, these are almost like plugging the holes.
Yeah.
But what happens after the holes are plugged? And is the budget even the proper place to think about future plans, or is it just focused really on financial stuff and things that are given to us? And then there was a lot of discussions online about how to think about this budget and all.
Yeah.
So the first sentiment was like, oh shit, is this just like just a handout spree? But how is it going to... And what would happen, is that one of the things, you keep giving this more and more every year. Then when you stop giving, what's going to happen? So yeah, that was my first thought before I dove in even deeper.
Yeah, but I was watching the CNA, the preamble to to this whole budget announcement, and they're just talking about, when they say it's an election budget, yes, it's because it's, the idea of saying that it's an election budget kind of gives you the impression that it's going to be this handouts given to you so that you would vote in favor of the incumbent, right? But actually, the other thing about this election budget, that's why it's significant to call it an election budget, is that I think it also means that the current government is at the end of its term, and by the constitution, you cannot carry on your surpluses onto the next government, right? So there is, depending on the financial situation of the year, right? There is sort of like an urgency to spend. And we experience this as well with some projects and all that, where they tell you, we're coming to the end of fiscal year and there's this amount of money that we need to spend on something. We cannot carry on. So, do you have anything for us, any projects and things like that, right?
Yeah.
We see that in a lot of industries, even ours. So in some sense, that's why it's expected for it to be a very, if the economy is not doing too badly, it's expected to be bigger, right?
Yeah.
And I think in this case, they very clearly said that apparently there was a lot unexpected rise in the corporate income tax that they collected. So that's why there's this large surplus that they can use as a war chest for all these.
So that means what you're saying is that in some way, yes, it is an election budget, but not in the first thing that comes to mind is that, this is to sweeten people up for the election.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is the end of our term.
Yeah, we've been prudent. We've done things well all the while.
Now it's time to party.
Yeah, we got leftover budget, yo. Yeah.
No, but also the more practical side of things is that because it is the end of the election, the cycle, I don't know how much they can commit to future plans, right? Because who knows, the next government suddenly, I mean, it'll probably be them, right?
Yeah.
But then it made me think, maybe they are limited by that, And I mean, I think it's one of the few times where the person delivering the budget is going to be the person overseeing the implementation,
Correct. Yeah,
right. Because normally it's like there's the finance minister and then there's the PM. But this one, he's almost talking through his own plans for execution. But going back to one thing you said, I don't know which live stream you watched it. I watched the recorded one on CNA.
Same here.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing about CNA, I think they monetized this video, because so many ads in between.
Oh, okay.
And some of the ads, were not the most constructive, because
I see.
there will be him, PMO talking about, rising housing costs.
Yeah.
Then there's one property ad. The
I see.
latest development is starting at 2,500 PSF. I'm like, fuck lah, stop. Can you turn off the monetization for this video? So CNA, please, for these kind of things, especially long ass videos, you can turn off the monetization to not be annoying. So that was one thing that was quite jarring.
You can, right? You can, especially the mid-roll, as in the middle of the video. Yeah, you
and
can.
every time I stop and then I resume, then there's some new ad. Sometimes it ties back to what was said right before.
Correct.
Which is not the best thing.
Yeah, but you can't, you're not going to stop MediaCorp from trying to make money from the platform. MeWatch, you're forced to sit through 30-minute-long ads before you can even watch anything at all.
True.
So sorry, that's just going to be the case. I did experience it because I use YouTube Premium. YouTube Premium.
Oh, so you got YouTube privilege
I pay for it Yeah.
True
I pay for it. Yeah.
And the best thing there is that you can close the app and listen to it.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
That's
the downside to not having premium. You have to leave your screen open.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I spend so much time on YouTube. If you have even 30 seconds a day, that you add that up over your year and everything. How many man hours have you lost,
You're dodging your life, lah.
I'm dodging my life.
Yeah, you're dodging your life. But I mean, the one thing, another thing that came to mind is like, okay, so there's all these handouts, and it almost feels like whenever there's a new company that's starting up and they know they have problems to fix, but they need to get users in. What do? They offer discounts and all that, right?
Yeah.
So when all these handouts come out, in my mind it's like, okay, I can understand that the future is uncertain, but it doesn't instill like a lot of confidence. And I don't know how much a budget is supposed to instill confidence. I do remember some speeches last year where it felt, maybe it was a National Day rally.
Yeah.
That was like, okay, there is some level of like, okay, we got this. But this budget, it almost felt like, okay, we know there are all these problems, but here are the things to tide you over until we figure things out.
Yeah.
And that was the subtext that sometimes stood out to me.
I mean, the elephant in the room is cost of living, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's concerned with cost of living. I think the recent Black Box research survey was that people's biggest concerns are the cost of living. Just broadly looking at everything here, so you're saying that your feeling is that, are we really addressing the cost of living problem, or are we just putting band-aids by like giving these like CDC vouchers and SG60 vouchers as handouts to people?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, to a certain extent, I don't know how much he wants to talk about the plans to reduce the HDB prices in this speech. And he did say, they are going to be increasing the supply of BTOs that can be bought within 3 years.
Yeah.
But it did feel like, oh shit, all these handouts, we're almost getting numb to it. Because even my own self, right, when I use CDC vouchers, right, if I use CDC vouchers to buy something that I think is expensive, after I use the CDC vouchers, when I walk away, I don't think that thing is more affordable.
Still feels expensive.
It still feels expensive.
Yeah.
So that's why it feels like, oh shit, this is almost like a stopgap until the government can find out what happens. And there are very real things that it's tough to understand how to solve it at this point. For example, the corporate tax, right?
Yeah.
I think a few years ago there was the BEPS 2.0, which is the global agreement by like 140 different countries to kind of normalize corporate taxes around the world.
Yeah.
To prevent like profit shifting to tax havens and all that. But the US Trump just signed an executive order to
pull
out of it and not commit to a minimum 15% corporate tax rate.
Yeah.
So for Singapore to think about a strategy, it's tough to do that now. So certain things, you really don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe the stopgap is the only way to go. But I don't know, it just felt like, oh shit, gonna be a rough ride, man.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard criticisms of this budget, right? Like people saying that just a stopgap measure, right? To try and curb, the very, very high inflation in Singapore over the last 5-6 years. I think the number is like 16%. Inflation has been 16% in the last 5 to 6 years since 2019, right? But at the same time, it's just thinking about when these handouts are given to people, right? A lot of them, they actually benefit the lower income group a lot more, right? And to a rich person, right, like this CDC voucher doesn't do anything for them, right? But for the lower income people, it actually is a big significant chunk, right, of the monthly expenses and things like that. So in some sense, giving out these vouchers is sort of a redistribution of wealth, right? Like where corporate taxes, especially because the corporate taxes seem to form the bulk of the surplus we have this time, those are being sort of distributed to especially the lower income folks. So in some sense, that is directly benefiting and in a form of wealth distribution, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to like only all the rich people get to keep whatever they have and everything, and then the poor people just deal with it.
Yeah.
So in some sense, it's to us we see it does not directly address the problem of rising prices, but we've talked about this where rising costs and everything are part of a global trend, right, going on, and I think our monetary policy seems to have prioritized keeping the Singapore dollar strong, right, in recent years. So imports actually feel cheaper. And Singaporeans also, when we go overseas, we're shocked by how how much more purchasing power we have when we travel, right? The usual refrain is when you go JB, everything's so cheap, so cheap, so cheap.
And then you annoy all the Malaysians.
Yeah, annoy everyone there. Now, I hear people when they go to Japan and Korea also, they're just talking about how cheap everything feels also, right? So that is a very clear monetary policy we've had, and there are global headwinds that we can't fight against when it comes to inflation, right? But what we can do here is try to redistribute a little bit of the wealth and the prosperity that has come our way this year.
Yeah.
So in some sense, a government can only do so much to fight against the headwinds of inflation and all.
Yeah.
So I sort of see a positive in what is being done here as well.
Yeah. I mean, there are the limitations, because if this is a budget speech, like, and with the surpluses not being able to kind of roll over to the next thing, there is a need to spend it.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of the time when I was working at a job when I was a chairperson of the D&D committee.
Oh, okay.
The Folklory thing. Just when I got thing there, then I was like, oh shit, it was just a... The cool thing was that everyone else in the group was quite cool. So even though it was a chore, but we had a big surplus from the past few years.
Okay.
So that year, the D&D was damn good.
Dope.
Yeah, but I think we kind of made life difficult for the next year.
You're not prudent.
Because there was not much to roll over. But that year, like when the dinner finished, me and the other team were like, hey, we were standing there like ballers. Everyone was like, yo, that was damn awesome. That was great. I was like, we did our job. But then when I heard about the next committee and how much they had to roll over, I was like, oh shit.
But it's true, it's true, yeah. So I mean, everything being written about the budget is bonanza budget, with no paint and no red ink. That's a Straits Times headline.
But don't you think that there was a lot of... I mean, the whole image of I think quite at Straits Times especially, there were quite a few titles. At one point they call it goodies. Then there was another thing about to sweeten the election. It's almost like they're just stuffing our face with candy.
Candy, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the interesting thing that I read somewhere was that whole notion that, with all these handouts, right, it is to sway voters. But apparently in the 2011 budget, right, that was $800 in growth dividends that was handed out to Singaporeans.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the first times that there was a handout. It was also the election where PAP lost GRC for the first time.
Yeah,
so it doesn't necessarily translate. So that's why I don't know how much this would sway voters, because it feels like, just looking online, right, the chatter, a lot of people not happy with this budget.
Correct. Yeah.
Right, and of course that is the echo chambers of Reddit and the subreddits there.
Correct.
But in general, to be fair, there were also certain things that were quite interesting. I found the sentiment towards nuclear energy and research in nuclear energy, nuclear power for Singapore. I never knew that was something that we would even consider.
Yeah. I remember it being there were test balloons put out. I think they discussed a little bit in opinion pieces on newspapers.
Yeah, but it felt like it was always shot down.
Yeah. Right. Or it felt like a very distant kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it seems like, they're looking more into it. But I mean, you kind of have to, right? The world we live in today, where America seems to be going back to its America First policy, and I think Ng Eng Hen said in a recent speech, becoming a landlord, right? Collecting rent from other countries and all.
Yeah, the US, right?
The US, right? Yeah. And Singapore kind of has to look at alternative sources for energy and raw materials and all that. So nuclear, I think it's a legitimate one to look at also. But we also need to realize that we live in a very small space where, any kind of nuclear contamination would be disastrous for everyone in the country.
That's why it would probably be one of those islands we reclaim.
I don't even know if that's far enough. Look at Fukushima and all that, right?
Yeah.
And how water from Fukushima that is being re-released back into the ocean, contaminated water, is causing... people are projecting the kind of environmental damage that will have even all the way to Korea and Jeju and all that as well. People are protesting that on the streets already, right?
But that is the conventional nuclear reactors. One thing Lawrence Wong specifically mentioned was the SMR, the small modular reactor, Terence. So maybe I would assume that it's not one of those stereotypical conical vast bases kind of thing, but it's just smaller. So if there's fallout,
it's like the Iron Man, the suit like that. Maybe Lawrence Wong will wear that into Parliament one day.
No, he comes flying in. Parliament House, the ceiling open. Then Lawrence Wong comes down. Oh,
It says, "Dear Speaker, sir, this is the SMR that I've mentioned in my budget speech."
And then he'd be like, Lee Kuan Yew said you must have that iron in you. Then he opens his shirt, fucking iron core.
Nuclear reactor in my chest.
Even though iron is not the metal that's used.
But I did want to mention one thing also, right? Talking about the US and all that. I mean, listening to this budget, one thing that did strike me, especially because I've been consuming a lot about Trump and the US and how even when they have gone overseas to talk to Europeans or go to the World Economic Forum, all that, their speeches right now are very America-centric, right? What's in it for America and how everyone else has failed America along the way. And we're moving away from this whole DEI crap and environmental concerns and pulling out the Paris Agreement, and NATO's not doing enough. I mean, in that sense, our speech was a bit more like what I expect political speeches to be, right?
In what way?
In the sense that we talk about, it's quite wide-ranging, right? We talk about energy concerns, renewable energy concerns. We talked about, how to help the persons with disabilities, right? There's a lot more. They dedicated whole segments to talk about how they can help persons with disabilities find work, find meaning in their lives. They talk about there's the sports and arts, the cultural pass, where literally it's like you get credits to go and enjoy $100. Museums and things like that. I can't imagine anything like that being tabled in the US today, right? If you are literally a Department of Government Efficiency, like firing 20 to 30% of the workforce, imagine announcing, we have a cultural pass for you to enjoy museums like the Natural History Museum in New York.
Because $100 per citizen, that's already a few hundred million.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
It'll be dodged out to the day ones,
Yeah, we don't even have that many attractions in Singapore already, right? But I can imagine this being used to the brim, right, by families and everything. So in that sense, I was like, this is a very rare little, rarity in today's political climate in the world, right, where people are making speeches that talk about inclusivity and talk about, a safe space for everyone and the future together. So yeah, I thought it was interesting. I'm not saying that it's all positive and rosy. So before people come in and say that I'm a PAP stooge or something like that, I'm just pointing out the kind of things that our Prime Minister is talking about versus what I would expect from, even Trump, the kind of speeches that he'd be making as president of the US now.
Yeah, because everything that you hear about things coming out of the US, especially the press secretary and all that, anything that seems to not be something that has a tangible impact on cost of living or something is seen as a waste of taxpayers' money. I think what helps Singapore is that there was still a surplus at the end of 2024, right? Of I think $6+ billion, and projected to have a surplus at the end of 2025 also. Which, I mean, the US is like, $1 trillion in debt, right? So Singapore having that surplus, actually, it is also a rarity, I think, globally. And I mean, just in terms of like the budget, right? Because I think there was an article written a few days ago about the importance of budget planning and why it's quite unique to Singapore. Because, now in the US politics, budget is almost central to almost a lot of discussions. Last year, the Germany's coalition government collapsed, I think, in large part because there was debates about the budget that was not resolved. And in France, also, the debates around the budget, led to the changing of the prime minister. And I mean, in Singapore, it might seem a little, it's all encompassing, somewhat paternalistic. But I mean, looking elsewhere, it's like, maybe this is not a bad thing? This is not a good thing? Feels like at least there's surplus to play with. But I did see some people point out that at the end of the day, politics and announcements like this, how many people are actually going to dive into the details? And from the optics of it, when you hear a surplus of 6-point-something billion, one question that could come to mind is like, then why you have to increase GST by 1 more percent? Right. I can imagine why there will be a lot of reasons, but I've already seen enough comments online of people saying that makes me feel like, oh shit. At the end of the day, these sort of things will be very polarizing. And of course, need to bear in mind that this budget will be debated at the Committee of Supply.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In Parliament, which I'm not so sure is when.
Next week, I believe.
Yeah, because this is not confirmed or finalized, right? I don't know what the historical occurrence is of the budget changing drastically after the Committee of Supply.
Yeah.
But there will be things that will be challenged, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, the thing, I guess, going back to your earlier question, right, is everyone who's like following this budget and looking at all the different how you can benefit from this. I think maybe the next step is also to think about what you think are the biggest problems that Singapore has, and do you think this budget helps to alleviate some of these issues, right? I mean, cost of living we talked about already, right? Like, is it a band-aid or are we not tackling the root issue? Okay, that's definitely a discussion. But the other thing that I thought was quite interesting was about our fertility rate, total fertility rate. A lot of things were announced in this budget about, to encourage families to have bigger families and baby bonuses and things like that. How do you feel as a new dad now when you saw some of the stuff that they're doling out for families?
I mean, one thing was like, they've always been like, all right, you singles and dinks, right? You want to fuck off, lah.
Yeah.
We're going to focus on the people who already made some babies and get them to make more, lah.
Yeah.
Right, and that was, I don't know, because you see all these different countries trying to encourage, like, to improve the TFR.
Yeah.
I think there was some talk that Korea might pay like 60,000 US a year to people to subsidize cost of a child and all that.
Yeah.
I think that was just proposed, lah.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's almost like, yeah, okay. To all those who have kids, you know what we're talking about. Can you just do one more or two more to make to counter all these people who don't want to have kids? Because the incentives for people to have the first child, I mean, felt like there's some, but more catered towards the people who already have children, lah.
Yeah, I want to have like a third child, or you already have a child in the house. There's more. Like there'll be $500 in credit for each Singaporean child aged up to 12, right?
Yeah. So to answer your question as a new dad, when I hear the phrase third child, right?
Yeah.
It's like I kena a headlight lah. I cannot imagine a third child. I cannot imagine having a third child.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, okay, that doesn't apply to me. The whole large family scheme.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like there'll be this pool of people who are now known as large families beneficiaries.
Three is large.
Yeah, 3 is large. 3 kids is large.
2 is a squash and a squeeze, but 3 is like large.
3 is large.
But yeah, and a lot of chatter online also follows this, right? A lot of people say that, at the end of the day, this whole total fertility rate thing, it's not about the money. Because at the end of the day, like even a $3,000 baby bonus, all that, it's a mere dent in the actual cost of bringing up a child, right, in Singapore. When you think about childcare costs and school, any kind of enrichment kind of things that you do, your food and holidays or anything, like basically to not just to survive, but to give your child a fun childhood, right? Fun childhood, an interesting, varied childhood that you might not have had when you were a child, right? I think all parents aspire to that, right? So they're saying that a lot of people are just saying a lot of these measures won't actually have a discernible impact on fertility rate. At the end of the day, like what you said, it's not about so much about the money, but it's just about, the work-life balance. How much time do you really have to devote to taking care of children, right? When you're trying to juggle a job and everything as well.
And have to use the $100 cultural pass.
Yeah, use $100 cultural pass.
Where got time to go museum if you got 3 kids?
If you got 5 in your family, that one time that's it already. You go one trip and that's it. Your whole pass is gone already.
Correct, yeah.
I mean, I literally was thinking about the cost of like going to the zoo and all that, and I realized, wow, going to the zoo is not a cheap kind of thing either. So it's when you're talking about stuff like total fertility rate, it's not just about that. That's the one that I feel very strongly that even you give money also, so what, right? It's a lot about other things, and I think when paternity leave was actually increased, it's going to be increased starting. It's increased already, right? Starting this year from 6 weeks extra. Then next year it's 10 weeks.
10
extra.
weeks, yeah. So April 2025 will be six additional weeks of shared parental leave.
Yeah, to me stuff like that actually matters a lot
helps.
more in moving the needle for TFR. But this money-wise, unfortunately, I don't think it moves the needle that much, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like It's that whole thing that we have heard so many times when growing up, right? You give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the alternative would be because in some way the handouts do help to tide over certain things.
Yeah.
But is it really solving the core problem? You can argue it's not lah.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I think the issue with the budget generally is that if you, because I saw a lot of people saying that, there's no talk about the plans for the future and all. But to be fair to the budget, there was a lot of talk about, making it more appealing for companies, increasing Singapore's relevance as an international transport hub with Terminal 5, which is going to increase our capacity by like 50%.
Yeah.
Then committing to every household being within 10 minutes of a railway station in Singapore.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with these sort of announcements, right, when you hear the Changi Airport Development Fund will be topped up by 5 billion, fuck does it mean to you? Right? And I think that I don't know whether that can be addressed in a budget, explaining how this actually is going to help Singapore in the long run. Like the one thing that I realized when I was researching on this, right, there's only one small mention about the 50% corporate tax rebate for the year of assessment 2025, which is meant to, in some way, make Singapore more attractive to companies.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is the impact that BEEPS, right, the BEEPS 2.0, the base erosion and profit sharing framework is actually going to impact Singapore very significantly. Because, the one thing that we know Singapore is attractive to is international companies setting up shop here.
Yeah.
Right? And I never knew when the term MNC is now MNE. Because a lot of times Lawrence Wong was saying MNE. I'm like, what the hell is an MNE? But it's a multinational enterprise.
Okay.
So I guess it's kind of a similar, or one is a subset of the other.
Yeah.
But because there's going to be now this universal corporate tax rate, and it's almost trying to reduce the capacity of a country to make themselves more attractive to companies, right? It's going to be a big problem for Singapore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we lose our appeal for all these companies setting up in Singapore, of course you can argue, is there really a trickle-down effect and all that? But that's like a big selling point for Singapore. And if that's not attractive, right, that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
And like it's hard to just summarize it in 1 or 2 minutes during the speech.
Yeah. But
that's where I think when people are listening to the budget, it is naturally what people see as like, okay, what's in it for me? So I think this budget will definitely, a lot of people will not be happy with the budget, but I don't know whether there's a budget that would make people happy.
Yeah. I mean, to your point about the 5 billion dedicated to develop our Changi Airport, right, further, people compared it to, how about what is the government doing to help hawker centres? So the government will allocate 1 billion to upgrade aging hawker centres, but over the next 20 to 30 years. 30 years. So people are saying like, 5 billion to help the airport, then 1 billion over 30 years to help the hawker centres. Obviously, that's where their priorities lie, just like attracting tourists and not taking care of people locally and all. I mean, can debate right?
Yeah,
about what it is, but that's the double-edged sword about putting figures on all these things, right? Like we don't see what 5 billion in Changi Airport will be immediately benefit us, but because the hawker centre downstairs, you tell me it's being upgraded, I'm like, okay, that's a good thing. I feel it immediately, right? Yeah. And that's where communications come in terms of trying to get people to explain why we need to spend so much on all these things, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's why, like, that one thing he said, a one-time to help hawkers, a one-time
$600.
Yeah.
The rental rebate, right?
Yeah. Then I'm thinking, what do hawkers feel about it? Is it like, that's it, $600 one time?
Yeah.
Is it going to help much? Of course, every dollar will help.
Yeah.
But like what you said, that's where once you attach figures to it, people will anchor their perspectives on that.
Yeah.
And the moment there are so many figures to compare to, right, that's where it gets tricky. I
mean, how do you feel about the fact that there was this SG culture pass, given that you are an artist yourself?
I mean, they can use it for our Yalabat live show.
That'd be awesome if we can get
Actually,
that.
how?
But it won't. Yeah, I think
won't.
only certain approved arts and charities and all that.
I don't know. That one feels a bit like, fuck this one must tell Singaporeans also, can you go and have some fun and watch art? Or maybe it's like, I mean, Iswaran, he's clearly a fan of the arts.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what?
Ambassador for Singapore Arts.
Yeah. It shouldn't be just ministers who can go watch Curious Night of the Dog. We want all Singaporeans to be able to watch Curious Night of the Dog. Is it Curious Night of the Dog?
something,
curious something
like
of the dog at night or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like it's one of those, okay lah. Feels like there's enough surplus to give a pass like this.
Correct. I mean, I did feel that, well, at least it's good that the arts got a mention right, in this budget, because the art scene has been at the receiving end of being deprioritized before, right? Like, the unessential service and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice to see, at least there's a mention of the arts. There's something to encourage people to go and enjoy the art scene in Singapore. But more importantly also, I think like what we have discussed extensively on this podcast is entertainment options in Singapore seem to be dying, right? And we want to get people out of their homes, not staying at home having house party, not staying at home watching Netflix and all that, but get out of your house and do shit, right? Maybe something like this will help. And hopefully, but live show, all that kind of stuff.
Then what, at the live show, people can pay with CDC voucher.
Open SingPass.
They have to scan and all that.
That'd be awesome. I would love to be part of the ecosystem. I would love it,
I mean, now sometimes I feel like if the hawker is damn busy, right?
Yeah.
I won't ask to use the CDC voucher, no?
Oh, yeah.
Especially if there's a long line. If the phone is obviously not near them, then you can see can. Then you feel bad also a bit. The one thing that there was a lot of talk about was the skills future, right?
Yes.
And about upskilling Singapore. So the one thing is, right, like I don't know if there has ever been like a public a report on the effectiveness of skills future. Because it is always a big part of the budget.
Correct.
And I admittedly have not used a lot of the skills future budget, especially because there's so many free resources online that feel a lot more up to date. Because I would imagine to become an accredited skills future like education provider, there's a whole process, right? But the rate technology is moving, like it's so fast that what is offered on skills future, is it even relevant by the time it gets approved?
Yeah.
So I don't know what the effectiveness, because the whole point of skills future is to equip people to change, to upskill themselves, get new jobs, extend their workability. But how effective is it actually?
Correct. But I think also shouldn't compare to just watching YouTube videos on things, right? Because there are certain things where you need to physically to engage with something, to learn how to, I don't know, fix your aircon and things like that, right? So you can watch it online, but it doesn't beat like being there and having someone to tell you exactly what you're doing right or wrong, right? So I think there's still something to these courses, and I think there was an element of the corporate side of Skills Future, right, where they allow corporations, to all these companies, to actually send their workers for these upskilling courses. And it used to be on a reimbursement basis, but now they're changing it to where you actually have an account and then you can use that credits to pay upfront, which actually to me is like, oh, okay, that is like logical, and it really helps businesses, because I think we've all been in a situation when having to deal with like trying to claim, make claims for these kind of grants and everything, right, which can be quite. It can be quite a cumbersome process and very feels very slow and bureaucratic, right?
Yeah.
So I do appreciate these kind of little things that try to make the whole process more seamless for businesses to access some of these grants and all that. Yeah.
And what was you mentioned previously on the podcast that you actually did a Skills Future course on something, right?
No, it's like a productivity grant kind of thing. But I had to attend like 2 days of corporate training to be a better manager or something like that. That's why I'm such a great manager, man.
Such a magnanimous teammate.
Yeah. I'm willing to share everything I learned with you as well, Harish.
Oh, is it? It's okay. Yours is 101, right? 101.
Yeah.
Mine is the more advanced level.
Advanced level. Using ChatGPT to manage people, is it?
Hey, my employee just said this. How to respond?
Give me a snarky response that is not too offensive.
Over WhatsApp, given it's 10 p.m., it's late, but how to respond? Correct. But I mean, overall, like, you
can't say no to money, right? You say no to money.
You can't say no to money, but that's where it's scary. It's becoming like, okay, it's the norm,
Yeah, it's an
But
expectation.
it's really from Monday to Tuesday. It was like Pritam and Lawrence that it's like Batman and the Dark Knight, no?
aren't they the same thing? Batman and the Dark Knight. Batman is the Dark Knight, right?
Oh, that's true lah.
Is it the Batman and Joker? Is it? Or what are you trying to say?
Batman and Joker communicates. Okay, maybe not Batman. Like not yin and yang.
Oh, yin and yang. Okay.
Yin and yang, maybe
Can.
Or basically, it's like two very different things. On Monday, right?
Yeah.
The chatter online was like, wow, the government is vilifying Pritam.
Yeah.
But maybe those people now on Tuesday, like, I mean, maybe they never vilify that much, like, because the CDC vouchers are coming in. So it's just like, wow, it's really like two very packed days of news.
Yeah. But I like it that people are discussing whether these things announced at the budget will help to solve the real issues that people are facing today. Like you mentioned, cost of living, fertility rate, our energy, our use of resources and energy, climate change. A lot of these issues that we're actually facing as a country, right? And doesn't feel like seems to be a discussion for really thinking about the longer term for Singapore, and not just about what's in it for me, so that I can vote for you, right? That kind of feel.
Yeah.
Very transactional, which I feel seems to be going on a lot in the political discourse in the US now, right?
But you don't find that happening in Singapore? Like the chatter online? You mean you saw it a bit, you saw the chatter being more holistic? More high level?
Of course, we see there's a lot of, like, on the surface, people, being very cynical, dismissive of it. But there are also people who look deeper into each of these things. Like, let's say we talk about nuclear energy, and then they're posting links to research and things like that. So to me, like, okay, at least it's starting a discussion on some of these important topics.
True.
That as a small country, the reality is we will face these concerns, and they are very important to us, right? I mean, if you're Trump and you're the US, it's so big, and there's so many things in terms of natural resources you can fall back on, but Singapore doesn't have all that, right?
Yeah, I mean, Trump literally said, we need more energy, we're going to start drilling again. Singapore will be like what?
Yeah, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I know the one big thing when Lawrence Wong was, like leading up to him taking over as PM, it felt like his message was that, the forward Singapore, the social compact, like we're all going to do this together. And to be fair, this budget is actually quite all-encompassing. So you look at it, you're like, okay, that's what he's been preaching a lot.
Yeah.
This budget kind of reflects it. So, I mean, in a way, like, okay, then let's see what happens next. But at least it's not he say one thing, then the budget is totally different. But there was that one thing that came up that I also see people chatting online, is that, hey, how come like the climate savings and all now offered to private property holders?
Okay.
Yeah. Because you talk about redistribution of wealth.
Yeah.
If you give everybody the same thing, then it's just everybody moves up the same notch.
Correct.
There's no leveler.
But just because you stay in private property doesn't mean that you heck care the environment also, right? You want them to feel part of the effort to try and reduce carbon emissions and everything as well, right? Because if you leave them out, I mean, there's still a sizable part of the population, right? You leave them out, then they feel like, why should I care so much about the environment and all that, right? So what do you think is the main grievance there? It's just that if you're rich, you should have the resources to buy more energy efficient equipment around the house, is it?
Yeah. So I mean, I can get the logic, but I'm just looking at my own first reaction, right? Was that, but then I know he started off by saying Singapore's wealth inequality is
lowest, right?
Lowest.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it.
I mean, it depends on your measure. I mean, it's all statistics, right?
Yeah, and also is the echo chambers you live online, and I totally probably exist in my own echo chambers, right? It doesn't feel like it. And if you're talking about redistribution of wealth, then it feels like it should be more geared towards the lower income. And I mean, there are things that, depending on your household income and all, it steps up, it step up now is a whole different phrase.
Hashtag step up.
To really cater towards the lower income. So this one, I don't know. I'm kind of like confused. Should I be, should the woke side of me be like, what are you giving the rich?
Yeah.
But logically, you can kind of understand it. That's why I'm like, oh shit, it's like, the computer jam a bit. Yeah, so I'm still thinking about it. But for you, it's like, why not?
I mean, if it's a budget for all, right?
Yeah.
And there are behaviors that you want to encourage for everyone as well. So you would, I think this is, for example, climate is one thing where I think encouraging people to take up habits or buy equipment that is more climate friendly. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can be cynical about everything that's announced, right? But that one to me is like it's kind of low on the totem pole, right?
Then what about the argument that CDC vouchers should be on an individual level as opposed to household?
Yeah, maybe. Because there's also the talk that nowadays because of rents are so high and all that,
Prices,
kids. I mean, young children usually stay with their parents for longer periods, maybe into their 30s even, right? So you go by household, actually, how cost per household has gone up already, right? Or it has stayed higher over longer periods for every family, right? So there is an argument there for that as well, no?
Yeah, because I think like whenever you hear talk of like the median household income has increased, I mean people do point out that but as the median number of people living per household also increased.
Yeah, correct.
Because then they kind of cancel each other out, right?
Yeah.
So that one also feel like that's a good point. I never thought about that. And then any scammers who change your home address won't affect your CDC vouchers anymore because it's tied to individual.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Unless you get your NRIC
Correct.
Then you screwed also
done already.
But I mean, like interesting. Now I'm curious to see how this takes hold in the committee of supply the debates. But I think this is just a sign of the year to come.
The year to come.
In terms of like the politics, the policies, government, elections, the trials and tribulations. Man.
I mean, again, I would say like, given the negativity I've been feeling about like politics around the world, not just the US but even Europe as well, all that. This to me is a lot more positive, right? This kind of thing. Obviously, when you give up money, it has to feel more positive, right? But at least it's like there's still a very focus on like being inclusive to everyone, right?
As opposed to the US, it's like you're not American, you fuck off.
Yeah, fuck off.
Fuck off.
Illegal immigrant, birthright,
minority, fuck off.
DEI, you all caused the helicopter to crash.
That's right. So I mean, in that sense, but that's the Singapore narrative, right?
That's the Singapore way.
Yeah, Singapore is better than everywhere else,
regardless of race.
No, and also like religion. Don't complain. It's better than a lot of other places.
That aspect. Yeah. Possibly.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
speaking of wealth inequality.
Wait, just one thing. If you have thoughts about the budget, if you're new to this podcast, we do have a very active subreddit. Please go there, leave your comments. I know people comment on YouTube below on the video here also or Spotify.
Yeah.
But this one confirm will generate discussion.
Yeah, sure.
But
since we were on the topic of wealth inequality, right? I think something happened recently in the business class section of Singapore Airlines.
Yeah.
That has set tongues and tails wagging.
Yeah.
About inequality, right?
At least one tail and one tongue.
One tail, one tongue. Yeah. So who is this passenger in the business class section of SQ?
It is a particular Dalmatian that flew Singapore Airlines business class for a 5.5 hour trip to Japan.
Yes.
It's that Dalmatian has an Instagram account by the name of Spotty the Swiss Dalmatian.
Yeah.
Has like 117,000 followers already.
Yeah.
And the video that went viral was just showing this Dalmatian at the boarding gate, in the seat. And it's damn cute. The Dalmatian is damn cute. Yeah. Dalmatians are pretty big, right?
Big, yeah. They're big.
Yeah. But this Dalmatian in particular was, what do you call it? An assistance dog?
Service dog, right?
Registered service dog.
Yeah.
So, I'm not a dog owner. You're an owner of 2 dogs.
Yes.
Like the whole spectrum of like service dogs versus emotional assistance dogs. What's the different categories there? Are you aware?
There are a lot, right? But service dogs are really they've been licensed. There's official license and everything. They've been licensed because they are helping someone with maybe a disability or someone who's quite a serious condition, right? Whereas compared to a lot of the other categories like emotional support dog, all that, apparently SQ has already, they only allow service dogs on the flights since I think April 23 or something, 2023, because there were a couple of instances where, I think there were dogs, emotional support dogs on the flight and all that. And then there were complaints from passengers and all that. So since then, they've only strictly limited it to service dogs. But I did want to highlight that this is, you think that we, in Yalabat, we talk about serious things like budget 2025 or Pritam Singh, found guilty, things like that. Why are we talking about a dog in business class? But this piece of news has reached India, has gone around the world, NDTV, News 18, Kalinga TV, a lot of times now, a lot of different outlets around the world, right? So a lot of people are discussing this, and I just find it quite amusing, right? But what are your thoughts when you see the Dalmatian sitting business class?
I mean, at first I was like, what? But when you hear it's a service dog, registered service dog, then I can understand And does it reek of inequality or privilege? I don't think so. I mean, if the customer can afford it and they need it, they need the dog to get around. Because I'm not familiar with the whole space of service dogs and like how they are certified and what sort of help they can provide to the owner. But this one, I thought, okay, it's interesting. I don't know what other airlines do with service dogs. Now I know even Singapore MRTs, once in a while you see a dog, right?
Yeah, service dog.
Service dog. I don't know whether emotional support dogs are allowed on MRTs.
Not sure, I'm not sure.
Yeah, support dogs. And I think it's like, I got no issues with it.
Yeah.
But I do wonder like how, because, for certain religions, like say Islam, there is certain considerations with regards to dogs and all that. So I don't know how Singapore Airlines manages that.
Yeah.
Because it could get a bit dicey.
Very
Not to say they shouldn't allow because of that. But yeah, you as a dog owner?
I mean, it's a dream, right, to be able to travel with your dogs.
Yeah, that's true. Because they have to get, but they don't have to get their own seat.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, it's a dream to sit in business class with your dog. I think that's the big dream, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of people are saying, "Wow, this dog got a better life than me here. Can sit business class, everything." But at the same time, the dog has maybe also more Instagram followers than you, right?
Yeah.
It really has. It seems to be a quite popular account with millions of views on his reels and all that as well. A little bit of a dog celebrity. So I can't begrudge the owner for doing this with a dog, and I think it seems like they're going to Tokyo for a quite extended trip because a lot of the recent posts are from Tokyo as well. But very cute I mean, you watch the videos, the dog's very cute and looks very friendly, and apparently was very well behaved on the flight as well. So yeah, nothing to complain about, right?
Yeah. Oh, I found this one definition. An assistance dog is one that is trained to perform tasks to assist persons with disabilities or medical conditions, such as a guide or hearing dog.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing both the individual and the dog needs to have some certification or verification,
Yeah.
And if that's the case, are there any other animals that people use for assistance, like a sparrow or?
Not that I know of. Yeah, not that I know of. Dogs we have a very special relationship with dogs as human beings.
But I can imagine this being very polarizing,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the owner of the dog has responded online. I mean, has responded in comments also about people asking about things like, but how's the dog going to pee and poop and all that? And he said that it was only a 5.5 hour flight, so they just limited the no food and water until an hour before landing, right? And the dog was fine, and they had pee pads as well. So in some ways, maybe the other passengers around, maybe you would rather have a well behaved dog next to you than say a wailing, crying child or what also, right? Actually, much easier to handle, right?
Yeah.
For you, how do you feel about that? Like, if you had to choose between sitting next to an infant or sitting next to a generally well-behaved dog, right?
Well-behaved dog.
And you know it because you know how the perils of traveling with children, right?
Yeah, I mean, like when you said, it's a dream to be on a plane with a dog. To me, I'm like, being on a plane with anything else aside from another full-grown adult, I'm like, what's that going to be like? What is that going to be like? But I mean, it's a sign of the times, But Singapore Airlines, interesting, that hasn't been. I haven't seen any other video of a dog on another airline.
Yeah.
It probably won't be any of the Middle Eastern airlines
correct,
or Malaysian airlines.
In business class, man. Business
class.
So it's quite cute, lah. There's the videos are of the dog like sort of just sitting in the seat, just looking around as the air stewardess is just walking by and all.
Yeah. I think if the owner got another seat just for the dog, I want people will react very differently.
I think it did, right? Isn't
I
it?
thought it was the same seat.
It's the same seat, but the owner is taking video from her perspective, and then the dog seems to be in its own seat. When I
But
look
there was
at
one part of the video where the dog is lying on the owner.
Oh yeah, but maybe that could just be. Let me just lie on you, right?
I mean, to me, it doesn't change things, but I can. Oh, that's why maybe people say, "Oh, wow, the dog's life is better than mine," because they have their own seat.
Business seat, business class seat.
But I mean, like for dogs, as an owner, do you generally want to keep them away from screens?
No lah. I don't know whether they can even perceive what's on the screen because their eyes don't see certain colors and everything.
Spotty watching 101 Dalmatians. Right? That's like the Dalmatian porn or something.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I don't even know if they really would appreciate the difference between economy class and business class. Maybe more space. But they enjoy, sometimes they do enjoy sitting under their owners and stuff like that, as opposed to, being exposed,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit like a cat, right? You give a cat a big room. I think you'd rather just have like a box or just a little, you can draw a little chalk outline. The cat just wants to be inside. There's something comforting about, being tucked inside a small space.
I thought with dogs also, I saw this video of they put the tape around a bull terrier or something. No.
Oh, not for my dogs. My dogs are sprawled all over. But they enjoy cozying up to you, right? It's also like sitting under your chair and all that. Yeah. So I can't say for sure that the dog enjoyed business class more than it would enjoy economy class.
Oh, there was another link to another video, rescued dog flies in Singapore Airlines business class, and this was posted 2021.
Oh, so it's not the same dog, right?
Different dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess it happens a lot.
Happens a lot.
Oh, it's a support animal welcome in the cabin.
Okay.
But I don't know. But I think this is an emotional support.
So no more already. Not banned already. Yeah, banned already. Not allowed. Yeah. But yeah, this Spotty, pretty good life. This has been in Switzerland, Singapore, and now in Japan. Has seen a lot of the world that other dogs wouldn't have the chance to.
Yeah. Speaking of dogs on a plane, right? There's this one anecdote I heard from someone who heard it from his friend who had been in the industry, and apparently, I don't know how true this is, but he said there was one story that his friend told him that once they were transporting a dog on a flight, and by the end of the trip, they found that the dog was dead in cargo. So what the crew and all did was within a few hours, they found another dog that was similar in breed to that dog to cover up. But in the end, when the owner saw the dog alive, they're like, what the fuck is my dog alive? I brought it back for cremation. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how true that is.
It sounds like an episode of like The Office or something.
It was damn funny, man. I mean, I don't know how real that is, but it just made me think of like dogs on a plane. That was one story. But man. Cool. So that was a light end to the deep discussion. Off to the one Shiok comment, man.
Yeah. What is your one Shiok comment?
My one Shiok comment. Oh, so it was with regards to the last episode 620 on YouTube. Pritam Singh found guilty and Singapore incels speak out.
Yeah.
There was one comment from someone Musico3415 that I also saw on other Reddit threads, which made me think about the whole Pritam thing. I can imagine that being a sentiment that people feel. So one point I realized is that Pritam Singh lied in order to protect his party member and not to protect himself. Comparing those PAP MPs who have committed various crimes in the past and of late were all for selfish gain. Thus, he will still be seen as a caring leader instead of many selfish leaders, as we know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I agree with that, but it is an interesting way of looking at things, and it makes me wonder about the impact of this trial, the verdict, the sentencing on like the people on the fence. So that was one Shiok comment.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Mine was on YouTube about the episode 619, the one we did on the Trishaw, and where we talked about fatherhood, right? Someone commented, I really like this new setup. This is really going to the ground. Do consider such a setup when the election rally starts. Strangely though, both the hosts look older under natural sunlight. That's you and me. I guess coming from a larger family where you have more younger siblings to take care of helps one mature sooner. Because most of the time, the elder child needs to help with parenting, the younger siblings as well as providing financial assistance.
I guess that's in response to what we were talking about.
Yeah, what
not
we're
us
talking
looking
about.
old,
But I guess the first half of the comment was interesting, right?
we looking old.
And maybe going to the ground when the elections
maybe,
really start. Possibly. Interesting suggestion.
Maybe that's what's cooking. But maybe.
But I do realize one thing, wearing headphones sort of keeps our hair
correct.
in order. But when it's out there, it looks wild.
I think that at that point my hair was like longer than it is now. And I also looked at it, I'm like, walao, I look like I never slept.
Yeah, you didn't sleep, you didn't shower.
I mean, it's a fatherhood episode.
Fatherhood doesn't mean that you...
Early fatherhood. First time early fatherhood.
Correct. Now more under control already.
A bit more. Cool. And what about your one Shiok thing, man?
Do you have yours already lined up?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's this article that, okay, like, I wouldn't say like off the bat it's a one Shiok thing, but I found it so almost like morbidly comical. Like, there was a few articles that came out on BBC and a bunch of other platforms talking about how noise cancelling headphones, right, might be to blame for hearing problems amongst younger folk.
Noise cancelling headphones.
Yeah.
Really?
So apparently, and these are by like audiologists. Private audiologists. There's this thing called auditory processing disorder, a neurological condition where the brain finds it difficult to understand sounds and spoken words.
Yeah.
So there is this research, and there are cases of individuals who spend so much time using noise isolating earphones, right?
Yeah.
That when they are in a place where there is a lot of background noise, they cannot hear like people talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just so weird. Like this is almost like the Black Mirror side of like technology, lah.
Okay.
And that's why I say this being my one Shiok thing is not to revel in other people's misery, but it's just so morbidly comical, because now what this article recommends and what audiologists recommends is that, you know, to combat the impact of noise isolation headphones, there are these apps that you use to expose you to background noise
I see.
to rewire your brain.
Yeah.
So it's almost like there's one piece of tech that is causing a problem that another piece of tech has to solve. As opposed to, just if that tech wasn't there in the first place.
Wasn't it you at one point, was it you that you were listening to like cafe noise while trying to work?
Oh, yeah.
And there was a website that just had like cafe noise, and you were very big on that, right, last time?
Yeah. And I mean, even for me, last time I used to get those earbuds that go into your ear and drown out other sound. Not to say noise isolating, but it allows you to hear. But then over time, I've grown to like the ones that are more open ear, where you plug in, you can hear, but also you can hear the stuff around you. And then now there's I guess it's potentially preventing some sort of hearing condition. But I just found it, this is a sign of like technology, the darker side of technology.
We're sort of like going around the corner.
You cause problems that you solve with tech.
Yeah, and you pay extra for it.
Pay extra, right? So maybe every time you get noise isolating earphones, you have to subscribe to this app that allows you to process more sound. Because the person in question, she said when she used to come from a small village in England, and she used to use noise isolating earphones for like 5 hours a day. So when she goes to university and sits in a lecture hall, right, with people kind of chattering, she cannot process what the lecturer is saying.
I see.
Because there is background noise.
Okay.
And that is fucking mind blowing. But yeah, cool.
Very real problems, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, my one Shiok thing is Instagram account called Death by Toys. I think it's by this guy called Dan Polydoris. It just came up to me because I was looking this up recently, where he creates these toys that are in the style of those 80s kind of figures, where there's a it comes with a cardboard backing, right, and then a little plastic transparent bubble, and then so he designs that cardboard backing that is sort of like the packaging for the toy, and it's quite interesting. Some of them are political statements as well. So for example, when the toy, like for the Boeing whistleblower, the toy is actually a casket, basically, saying like whistleblowers get killed in Boeing, And so he does a lot of interesting things, like there's one card for deadbeat dad. And it's just an empty plastic bubble. That means that who's never around, basically.
Great, man.
Very creative, and some references to movies that we all love, that are not necessarily like what you imagine there that they make toys for, right? So I've just been subscribing to a bunch of these like accounts that custom make toys and package them.
But he
in
doesn't
retro
sell
packages.
it, does he?
I think they do. I think they are like sort of like art pieces that you can buy and display around your own house.
Oh shit, that's great.
But it's just cool,
Yeah.
And I always thought about it, like, there are a lot of shows that we enjoy watching, like Singles Inferno and stuff like that. Imagine like you could make characters of each of them and all. Because I think what got me into this was that one of these guys, these customizers, they made a figure of a Terrace House character, right? One of the most beloved Terrace House characters. And I started to go into this rabbit hole of all these toy customizers, and I was like, this is pretty cool, man.
No, you can buy it, the website.
Oh, you can?
buy,
Wow, this is cool.
This is what I'm looking at, the toy, the fucking asshole. And it's a guy with a guitar at a party. Oh, fucking great.
Imagine we
man.
made one for all like politicians or whatever in Singapore, so that'd be cool, right?
Like Tan Kiat Hao with a dog collar.
I mean, Lawrence Wong with his guitar, obviously, right?
Lawrence Wong with a guitar.
And a folder, maybe.
Yeah,
Indrani with a folder.
Shanmugam, he always pressed the pedestal.
The pedestal.
And then Leong Man Wai, the hand raiser.
Yeah, the hand. Yeah. Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh, cool, man.
Yes.
Cool, but yes, that is the end of the podcast on the budget 2025.
Wow, what a taxing, pardon the pun, what a taxing week, right? In terms of the depth of the topics that we have to talk about.
Who knows what's in store, man?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're new to the podcast or if you've been with us for a while but haven't yet followed us on social media or left us a review on Apple or Spotify, please do and join our subreddit as well.
Yeah.
And if you want to work with us,
please check out ministryoffunny.com or email us at contact@ministryoffunny.com.
all right, thanks everybody and talk to y'all soon.